So you're planning a project that involves a glass railing. Awesome. But pretty soon, you're going to hit a huge fork in the road. And it's this. Do you go with tempered glass or laminated glass? It sounds like a simple choice, right? But trust me, what you decide has massive implications for safety, for your budget, and even for staying on the right side of the law. Okay, let's jump in and get this sorted out.
And look, this isn't some tiny technical detail that nobody cares about. This quote is from someone with 15 years in the business, and they say it's the #1 question they get asked. It's a real point of confusion for a lot of people, and today we're going to clear it all up for you.
So yeah, that's the big question on the table, isn't it?
Is there just one right answer?
Well, not exactly. It really depends on your specific project, where it is, how high the railing is, and the look you're going for. But don't worry, by the time we're done here, you'll know exactly how to answer this for yourself. Choosing the right glass really is a dilemma. You're trying to find that perfect balance between three super critical things: safety, building codes, and how the glass is going to perform over the long haul. And if you get it wrong, you're not just risking a failed inspection, you're risking people's safety. To really get the difference here, we have to go back to the beginning, to how these two types of glass are actually made. They both start out as the exact same sheet of glass, but then they go down two totally different paths. And that origin story, well, it's the key to everything.
So let's look at those two paths. Tempered glass, on one hand, goes through a real trial by fire. It gets baked at over 600 degrees Celsius, and then, whoosh, it's rapidly blast chilled. This whole process locks a crazy amount of tension into the glass. Now, laminated glass is totally different. Think of it more like a high-tech sandwich. You take 2 or more sheets of glass and bond them to this tough plastic inner layer in the middle, using a whole lot of heat and pressure.
And that heating and cooling process for tempered glass, it creates an absolute powerhouse. You end up with this single piece of glass that is 4 to 5 times stronger than it was before. I mean, to even earn the name tempered, it has to handle at least 10,000 pounds per square inch of pressure. It is incredibly tough, but its greatest strength is also the source of its biggest weakness.
And that brings us to the most critical difference of all: the moment of truth. What happens when it actually breaks? This is where these two types of glass show their true colors. And for a railing that's supposed to stop someone from falling, this is, without a doubt, the most important thing you need to know. The difference is, well, it's night and day. When tempered glass fails, all that tension we talked about gets released in an instant. It literally explodes into thousands of tiny pebble-like pieces. Laminated glass, though, does something else entirely. The glass layers might crack, but that tough plastic inner layer in the middle hangs on, keeping all the broken pieces stuck together in a kind of spiderweb pattern.
So let's be absolutely clear what this means for a railing. When a tempered glass panel breaks, the barrier is gone. Poof, instantly. You're left with a gaping hole with zero fall protection. But when a laminated panel breaks, it cracks. It might sag a bit, but it stays in the frame. It's still a physical barrier. And that can be the difference between a scary moment and a total catastrophe. This chart just says it all. Look at the post-breakage reality. Tempered glass, it keeps exactly 0% of its strength once it shatters. It's an all-or-nothing game. But laminated glass, especially the really high-performance kind with an SGP inner layer, can hold on to an incredible 40 to 60% of its strength even after it's broken. It keeps doing its job.
Now, based on that huge safety difference, you might be thinking the choice is pretty obvious. And you'd be right. In fact, it's so obvious that in many cases, you don't even get to make the choice. The building codes will make it for you. Regulators have definitely noticed how these two perform after breaking, and the rules are getting tougher. Now, this definitely varies depending on where you live, but the trend is crystal clear. In the US, the main building code basically says you need laminated glass for guards, unless you have a separate heavy-duty top rail. Canada, they're even stricter. Laminated is pretty much mandatory for all guardrails. And in Australia, if you've got a drop of over 5 meters, it has to be laminated. See the pattern? Codes are demanding the post-breakage safety you only get with laminated glass.
Okay, but what about the cost? Let's talk about the elephant in the room, because this is often the deciding factor. And yes, because laminated glass is more complicated to make, it costs more upfront. But we really need to look beyond that initial price tag and think about the true long-term cost. So here's a look at the hard numbers. If we say the cost of tempered glass is our baseline, let's call it 1 unit, then laminated glass is going to cost you almost double, somewhere between 1.8 and 2.2 times as much. That's a pretty big difference on paper, and there's no denying it's a bigger investment at the start. But that's just the cost of the material. What's the true cost of going with the cheaper option if it doesn't meet the code? Well, it's the cost of having an inspector tell you to rip it all out and start over. It's the cost of your whole project getting delayed. And especially for a public or commercial space, it's the massive financial risk and liability if that non-compliant railing fails. All of a sudden, that initial savings doesn't look so good, does it?
All right, so we've looked at how they're made, how they break, what the law says, and what they cost. Let's pull all of these pieces together now and look at the full picture. This should help you find that perfect match for your specific project. This table just lays it all out side by side. I mean, look at the most important line item for a railing, post-breakage safety. It's not even a competition. Tempered is poor, laminated is excellent. Code compliance? Laminated is generally accepted, tempered's use is limited. You even get a nice bonus with laminated. It blocks 99% of UV rays. The only category where tempered wins is on that initial cost.
So, how do you actually make the final call? Here is a simple 4-point checklist for you. Number 1, first and always check your local building code. That's non-negotiable. 2, think about your design. Frameless systems pretty much always require laminated glass. 3, assess your risk. A busy commercial space has very different safety needs than a private backyard deck. And finally, number 4, balance that budget against the absolute demands of safety and the law.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. You're not just buying a piece of glass, you're investing in a safety barrier. So now you've weighed the risks, you know the rules, and you understand the true costs. The decision is in your hands. What will you choose to protect your space?